Welcome, Nancy Arena, to the Clean Titans channel. We're absolutely thrilled to have you. Our audience is typically focused on groundbreaking technologies, innovative business models, and the entrepreneurs driving the green energy revolution, often thinking about solar panels, wind turbines, and electric vehicles. However, we firmly believe that the clean energy transition is a truly holistic endeavor, encompassing every aspect of our lives, including what we eat. Your extensive work as the creator and host of Vegan Pulse, a children's book author, might seem at first glance distinct from traditional energy discussions, but your insights, particularly on sustainable food systems, are incredibly vital to building a comprehensive, sustainable future. To kick off, could you share a bit about your journey and what ignited your deep passion for veganism and humane education?
Thank you for having me. I am happy to be here to talk about veganism and how our global food system needs to change as part of that environmental thing about clean energy and clean environment. We need to also include our food system. I became vegan 11 years ago, and I did it for the animals. And unbeknownst to me at that time, I thought this is a diet change. This has to do with being compassionate and being caring towards other sentient beings. And two things I learned. First one was that I went vegan in 30 days to the date that I went vegan. All the ailments that I was experiencing that included bursitis, swelling of the joints, and most importantly, fibromyalgia, which kept me in pain all the time, they disappeared. And I thought to myself, I'm so glad that in me being kind to the animals, that I felt like the universe was kind back to me and released me from pain that I have experienced for so many years. And I thought, wow, this is something that people need to know, how it affects your body, how it helps you heal. And then I also came to realize that veganism is not just about a diet. I believe it to be a social justice movement that encompasses diet, but it also encompasses the environment. It encompasses people of color. There are so many things that go into veganism itself that I was not really aware of, just like I had not made the connection of the suffering of the animals with the food on my plate, or what I used to call food on my plate, because really they were just dead carcasses that I was consuming. So those are the things that I started. And then I thought, well, people should know about this. I know people who suffer with swellings of the joints and fibromyalgia and all these other things, that I thought I took it upon myself to try to spread the news a little bit about it and bring out the information, because it's not readily out there. At least 11 years ago, it wasn't as readily out there as it is today.
You've been a prominent voice in the vegan movement for many years. How has your perspective on its broader environmental and social impact evolved over time, especially as climate science became more urgent?
I guess once I started to dig deeper, read more, research more, I began to make the connection between how animal agriculture specifically, to begin with, and most evidently, is not ever talked about when it comes to clean energy or fixing the environment or any of those things. And the broader impact of veganism, both environmentally and socially, have become increasingly more relevant as climate science underscores the urgency of reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. And so the perception of veganism has expanded beyond ethical concerns for animal welfare to include sustainability and global food security. So as I learn more and more and more and more, come into this information that is left unsaid when we're talking about environmental issues, right? We don't necessarily talk about, when we're talking about climate change, they're not necessarily talking about changing how we eat, which has a big impact on the environment.
Let's dive directly into the core connection. For many in the clean energy community, the immediate focus is on decarbonizing our electricity grid for transportation. However, the global food system, and especially industrial animal agriculture, is a massive, often overlooked contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Extensive land degradation and pervasive water pollution. Can you elaborate on the significant environmental footprint of our current global food system and precisely how animal agriculture plays a pivotal role in accelerating climate change?
So the global food system, particularly industrial animal agriculture, has a significant environmental footprint that often goes unrecognized and unspoken. Its impact spans, as you were saying, greenhouse gas emissions, land degradation, water pollution, making it a key driver of climate change and, of course, disrupting ecosystems. Animal agriculture is responsible for a large portion of global greenhouse gas emissions through the methane from livestock digestion and carbon dioxide release from land use changes. And it's a potent greenhouse gas. And additionally, the production and transportation of animal feed, as well as the manure management, contribute to emissions that worsen climate change. Then we talk about the expansion of livestock farming that leads to deforestation and soil degradation. Large tracts of land is cleared to create pastures to grow crops for animal feed, not for humans, but for animals, reducing biodiversity and carbon sequestration capacity. Of course, the overgrazing further depletes the soil nutrients, leading to erosion. And compared to plant-based food production, industrial meat farming requires disproportionate amounts of land and resources. Then we go into water, right? Industrial animal agriculture is a major source of water pollution due to the runoff from the factory farms, the animal waste, the antibiotics, the chemical fertilizers that are used in the feed crops, contaminate nearby rivers, groundwaters, creating dead zones in aquatic ecosystem. It's just very harmful. And when we don't have water to drink or soil to plant on, it's going to be too late. Then, of course, the larger picture is as climate science advances, the role of industrial animal agriculture in environmental degradation is becoming more apparent to people. And so expert advocates for sustainable food production methods are starting to speak up to address the global food system and the impact that it requires, and how we need to reduce the waste, improve efficiency, and shift dietary habits to minimize the intensive harm that animal farming is doing.
When we discuss the most significant environmental benefits of shifting towards a plant-based food system, what are the top 2 or 3 impacts you would highlight in terms of land use, water consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions?
Well, we have to go back to animal agriculture that requires vast amounts of land for the livestock grazing and feed crop production. And if we shifted to plant-based foods, we would significantly reduce deforestation and habitat destruction. So compared to meat production, plant-based agriculture uses far less land, enabling reforestation and restoration of ecosystems that might support biodiversity. We also have raising animals for food is extremely water intensive. Livestock require significant amounts of water for drinking, for feed production, sanitation. So it is a major contributor to water depletion. The shift to plant-based food is crucial, especially as global freshwater resources become increasingly strained. Some places, there is no clean water. They fight for water. So just because it's not happening to us in rural America, whatever, it doesn't mean it isn't happening elsewhere. And what happens somewhere else happens to us because we're definitely all interconnected. Animal agriculture, again, is a leading source of methane, the potent greenhouse gas that we just need to put an end to. So transitioning to a plant-based diet would definitely cut down on the greenhouse emissions.
Methane is an extremely potent greenhouse gas that is significantly more warming than carbon dioxide. So reducing methane is a good thing. How do you conceptualize plant-based diets as a form of clean energy for the planet itself and perhaps even for human health?
Well, much like solar or wind power reduces our reliance on fossil fuels, plant-based eating minimizes the ecological impact of food production. So traditional animal agriculture functions like a carbon-intensive energy grid, draining resources, polluting ecosystems, and emitting vast amounts of greenhouse gases. And in contrast, plant-based diets decrease emissions, much like clean energy sources lower carbon output. It uses fewer natural resources, akin to how renewables require less raw materials to be extracted. And it also restores ecosystem by reducing the land degradation and allowing the process of reforestation. Biodiversity recovery can improve soil health.
Individual dietary choices are undeniably powerful, but for systemic, widespread change, we need broader adoption and significant policy shifts are needed. How do you envision the transition to more sustainable food systems seamlessly integrating with or even actively complementing the broader clean energy transition at a social and governmental level?
So the transition to more sustainable food system can seamlessly integrate with the broader clean energy transition, creating a unified approach to climate resilience. As you said, and it would be at both the societal and governmental levels, because these movements share fundamental goals: reducing emissions, conserving resources, and promoting long-term sustainability. So first of all, we would need for governments who could coordinate food sustainability with clean energy policies, treating them as interconnected solutions rather than separate initiatives. So carbon pricing and agricultural reform, carbon tax policies targeting fossil fuels can extend the emissions-heavy food system, incentivizing plant-based production instead, regenerative farming. Renewable powered agriculture, subsidies for farms transitioning to solar, wind, or geothermal energy to align with the broader green energy strategies. Or also to focus on resource efficiency by designing like biogas from food waste and manure that can fuel local energy grids, or smart irrigation powered by solar or wind power, right? Vertical or urban farming innovations, which can integrate with energy efficient city planning. We would need to also have education campaigns on plant-based diets and clean energy. Adoption can work in tandem to shift public behavior, encouraging sustainable eating habits and electrical transportation, for example, trying to find a holistic way to lower the carbon footprint.
Your work with Vegan on the Map and the Red Green VegFest clearly demonstrates a focus on community building and increasing accessibility to plant-based options. How crucial is local advocacy and community engagement in promoting these dietary shifts, and what parallels do you observe with grassroots efforts in the renewable energy adoption, like community solar projects?
Well, I think that local advocacy and community engagement are essential in driving shifts that we need toward a more sustainable food system, much like the way the accelerator for renewable energy adaptation has been taking place slowly but surely, right? So things like community-led food education and access, local organizations can play a critical role in educating communities about plant-based diets, food sustainability, and environmental benefits. And with my Red and Green Veg Fest and my other efforts, that's exactly what I focus on, is educating communities about all aspects of veganism, which include the environmental benefits, sustainability, and health, and all those things. So farmers markets, plant forward cooking workshops, and urban gardening initiatives empower individuals. So if we had more organizations doing that, we could definitely make a change. Just as community solar programs have pushed for clean energy subsidies and grid integration, local food movement advocates for plant-based meal options in schools would also be a great help. Thinking about shifting food systems that rely on community engagement to normalize plant-based eating. So just like the grassroots and renewable energy, word of mouth, social media campaigns, local events, all these things create a momentum that would help us with the choices the mainstreams are doing. In essence, local action creates the conditions for systemic change.
Community farming or even urban plots for people to farm.
Right.
Great.
Community gardens, community food sharing, all those things would help.
What are some of the most persistent barriers you encounter when encouraging people to adopt plant-based diets? And crucially, how might the clean energy community, with its inherent focus on innovation, scalability, and overcoming resistance to change, help in addressing these challenges within the food system?
Well, there are several persistent barriers to widespread adoption of plant-based diet, from cultural resistance to infrastructure limitations, from what we tell each other, what organizations do, things where they're not promoting, when we're talking about climate change and we're not promoting a food change, things like that. Cultural and social resistance, deeply ingrained in food traditions and preferences, often create a resistance to dietary change. But here's what I have to say. When I went vegan, I didn't stop eating anything that I didn't eat before. My background is Hispanic, so everything I ate before, I still eat, with the exception that there's no cruelty involved. I've substituted some items to change the animals, because after all, the animals, we consume the animals, we're consuming diseases. We're consuming things that are gonna pop up later, and we kill the animals and then the animals kill us, pretty much. So perceived cost and accessibility. While plant-based diets can be cost-effective, some of the alternatives, like the plant-based meats, remain expensive because there's no one really funding them, no one helping them. And the meat and the dairy industry is a very powerful industry, and they also give you out misinformation that tell you that, oh, you need to drink milk for calcium, for example, when there are studies that show when you add milk to something that's beneficial, it takes away the benefits of whatever other food you were having. So if you add it to your cereal, to your coffee, to your chocolate, it brings down whatever health benefits any of those things would have had.
And yet 65% of the world's population is lactose intolerant. They don't drink milk, and they still have healthy bones.
And the reason why is because they're not baby cows, right? You hear this over and over. But also, it depletes calcium because, yes, it does have calcium, but the way it goes into your system, it depletes your calcium, which is misinformation. So, yes, what was it? What did I read the other day? Urine has some properties that are healthy, but I'm not going to take up drinking urine.
The plant-based food industry is experiencing an explosion of innovation. What emerging trends or specific innovations in plant-based foods, alternative proteins, cultivated meat, precision fermentation, or even sustainable agriculture practices excite you the most in terms of their potential to accelerate this dietary and environmental transition?
Well, there are several exciting innovations in plant-based foods, and one of them here's my thoughts, right? Precision fermentation. It's revolutionizing alternative proteins by enabling the production of dairy and meat proteins without animal agriculture. Now, if you don't have to kill anyone, why wouldn't you choose the kinder way, right? Companies are using these microbial fermentation to create animal-free whey and casein, making plant-based dairy products taste and function like your traditional dairy, except they're not harming animals. So that is great. Cultivated meat grown from animal cells in bioreactors is also gaining traction, with regulatory approvals expanding and production costs decreasing, which is great. I myself am not going to have that one, but I don't want to eat animals. But on the other hand, it helps animals. So I'm going to talk about that because it helps our situation. And then, of course, there's the algae-based proteins that are emerging as highly sustainable alternatives to traditional plant proteins. Microalgae like spirulina and chlorella offer dense nutrition while requiring minimal land and water. So those are things that are exciting. Sustainable farming practices like regenerative agriculture, climate smart farming. So all those things are definitely exciting. Beyond soy and pea protein, new plant-based protein sources like flax, faba beans, and lentils are gaining popularity. So it's artificial intelligence and biotechnology are accelerating food innovation by optimizing protein discovery and improving texture and enhancing the nutritional profiles. So AI is driving platforms that are helping researchers identify plant proteins that mimic animal proteins. So all those things are very exciting.
From your unique vantage point, how can entrepreneurs and investors, essentially the clean titans of the food system, strategically contribute to making plant-based options not just available, but truly accessible, affordable, and irresistibly appealing to a much wider mainstream audience?
Investors can fund large-scale production facilities and efficient supply chains to lower the costs and improve accessibility so that everyone can have access to it. By supporting alternative protein startups, they help drive economy of scale, making plant-based food as affordable as meat. Consumers demand familiar flavors, so entrepreneurs can invest in precision fermentation, cultivated meat, and advanced food systems to create that plant-based products that mimic traditional meat and dairy for those who want that, while maintaining affordability. Achieving price parity with animal-based food is definitely key, so investors can support cost-efficient ingredient sourcing and production measures to ensure that plant-based options are as competitively priced. Marketing plays a huge role in mainstream adoption. When I turn on the TV, all I see is meat in there. Every now and then you'll see some, now more than so. I saw a commercial for almond milk. But in helping to mainstream these products that are there, it makes it more visible for people so that they know that they're out there, so that they have information and they could try it. Investors can lobby for subsidies and government incentives that support plant-based agriculture, collaborating with schools and hospitals and corporate cafeterias that to help them integrate plant-based meals every day, not just on one day. Expanding plant-based options in supermarkets, restaurants, and fast food chains. All these things, entrepreneurs should partner with major retailers to secure shelf space and increase visibility. And I think by combining innovation, investment, strategic partnership, these clean titans can reshape the food system, making plant-based eating a default choice rather than an alternative.
Those organizations you mentioned that you see all the ads for, they have massive marketing budgets, and we certainly need economies of scale to bring the cost down so that they're cost competitive.
Not only do they have massive advertising dollars, the meat and dairy, but they have this amount of money that they pay to research what colors to use on it. Do we use a puppy or do we use this? The amount of money that they invest in trying to manipulate you to eat their products is incredible.
Are there specific areas where you believe there's a critical need for increased research, development, or targeted investment to further decarbonize our food system through plant-based solutions, perhaps focusing on areas that haven't received enough attention?
So current agricultural methods still rely heavily on carbon-intensive fertilizers and monoculture farming. So maybe increasing their investment in regenerative agriculture, agroecology would definitely reduce emissions and improve the health of the soil. Scaling precision fermentation and alternative proteins. This technology could replace animal agriculture with low emissions, and that would definitely help. And then most plant-based products rely on soy and pea protein, but underutilized crops like duckweed, faba beans, and algae protein, climate resilient alternatives. So research into crop optimization and diverse protein sources is definitely crucial. And food production still relies on fossil fuel powered processing, refrigeration, and transportation. So investing in renewable powered food processing, low emission packaging, and efficient cold chain logistics could dramatically cut emissions. And of course, governments that would subsidize carbon intensive, so do more for plant-based and directing their subsidies toward plant-based initiatives.
For our dedicated audience, many of whom are deeply involved in clean energy development and advocacy, what actionable steps can they take to integrate more sustainable food choices into their personal lives and effectively advocate for a food system that truly supports our collective climate goals?
Prioritize plant-based meals. If you don't want to go vegan right then and there, then start by changing out 2 meals, 3 meals, 4 meals, days that you lessen your meat consumption. and you investigate more on the plant-based things that are out there. Buying locally, the produce that's locally, that reduces transportation, therefore it lowers the emissions and supports the local farmers. Plan the meals, store food properly so that you don't waste food. Compost your scraps to reduce the waste in the landfills. Choose things that are sustainable. Buy in bulk, avoid plastic, choose eco-friendly packaging. Engage in community initiatives like urban farming or food rescue programs. Things like that. Advocate for plant-based options in schools, hospitals, workplaces as the normal and not as the alternative. Definitely, we need to share the knowledge, social media, events, and discussions, because the media is not really picking up, because they get their money from the dairy and the meat industry. So there's not a lot of media coverage for veganism that's happening. So
as well as the government, because the government subsidizes some of those marketing campaigns for meat and dairy.
Exactly. Well, they subsidize meat and dairy, and that's why they are priced at the price that they're at. Because if it wasn't, then the price would be higher. And encourage the government to take action on this, because animal agriculture and the animal flesh that we eat and any of the animal products is contributing to the decline of the health of all of us.
The planet.
And it's contributing to the decline of the planet, and definitely, of course, killing sentient beings that deserve their own life and not to be tortured, meaning living a life to be killed. There's something kind of psychotic about that, to read someone to kill them.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, vote with your wallet. Choose the brands for your household cleaning products, for your cosmetics, for what you wear. Choose the things that are sustainable and ethical.
Looking ahead, say 10 to 15 years from now, what is your ultimate vision for a truly sustainable, resilient, and regenerative food system that operates in complete harmony with a net zero future? What does that ideal look like to you?
Farming would shift from extractive practices to regenerative methods that rebuild the soil health, sequester carbon, and enhance the biodiversity. The food system would prioritize low-impact plant-based diets and cultivated meat, precision fermentation, and the algae-based proteins. Food production would operate on a closed-loop system where waste is repurposed, composted, and converted into bioenergy. Instead of relying on globalized, emissions-heavy supply chains, food systems would be localized with urban farms and vertical agriculture and community-supported agriculture. Agriculture and food processing would be powered by solar, wind, and bioenergy, eliminating fossil fuel dependency. And smart irrigation and AI-driven resource management and electrified transport would make food production efficient and climate friendly. And of course, governments would need to redirect subsidies towards sustainable farming, incentivizing climate smart food production. Consumers would be educated and empowered to make choices that align with planetary health, making sustainable eating the default rather than the exception. And the vision isn't just possible, it is necessary.
I was reading that in China, 2/3 of farming is these electric drones, solar power, and they spray only that much product of fertilizer, herbicide, pesticides that's needed and where it's needed. And they don't like carpet bomb like we do right now. And so definitely reduce the amount of resources that go into farming and downstream because of farming.
And like I said, if the government was truly on the side of healing the planet, making people healthy, and ending cruelty to animals, then they would do it because it's possible. And there are organizations there like Transformation who help farmers transform from animal agriculture to a different kind of thing. It could be mushrooms, it could be almonds, it could be all these things. And they're being very successful, those individuals that have already joined in this program, the Transformation.
But you know what I want?
What?
Star Trek replicator.
Me too. Well, that part of that, there is also technology that has not only 3D printing of food, but also capturing protein from the air. Air protein is a thing.
Yes, I'd like to bring somebody on the channel who's doing air protein. If you know anybody, please connect me. I would love to have someone come and talk about air protein.
So if we did all of that, the planet would bloom again. People would bloom with health again. And animals would not have to suffer what they suffer just for the 5-minute, 10, 15-minute taste hit that you get when you can have so much good food without hurting anyone. And I have to tell you, I was not a food lover until I became vegan. When I became vegan, I became a food lover because I was introduced to so many different kinds of food that is out there that I was not experiencing or even looking at. And now it's wonderful. I love food.
Nancy, this has been an absolutely enlightening and incredibly important conversation. Thank you so much for generously sharing your expertise and passion with the Clean Titans community.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I just want to say that veganism is the future.
Nancy, where can our audience find out more about your impactful work with Vegan Pulse, New Mexico Vegan, and the Red Green VegFest?
So the name of my 501c3 nonprofit is called Sprouting Compassion. And so if you just Google Sprouting Compassion, you'll find our website, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel.
We'll include the link to that in the description of this video.
Awesome.
To our Clean Titans audience, remember that the clean energy transition is a comprehensive journey touching upon every aspect of our lives, including the food we choose to put on our plates. Your everyday choices hold significant power. If you found this discussion as insightful and inspiring as we did, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Clean Titans channel for more exclusive interviews, and share it with someone who needs to hear this crucial message. Until next time, let's continue to build a cleaner, more sustainable future, one innovative solution and one passionate choice at a time.